how do we move from you know, groups of thousands, constitutions, etc., written for thousands, and get or hundreds, and get down to dozens? What's essential? I think that's a great question, and I think that is the task. And I talk about having kind of two cohorts, and I don't mean to split us up or build walls, but just to kind of have focal points. I think the younger cohort needs to try to sort out what's essential. What do they need taking forward? Imagine you were getting on a boat from France to come over to St. Louis. You can't bring everything. You know, what do you put into that, you know, trunk that you packed? And I think that's going to be critical when our, you know, chapter looks like this whole room versus when our chapter looks like that table. That's a different feel. And how do we move from the one to the other, or do we let the new kind of evolve in the midst of the old, which I think is probably the way to do it. I saw a lot about risk, and I think that's huge. Is being willing. I think it's people who want to join us being willing to risk joining a community that won't see them through to their 50th anniversary, and yet having the trust to join. I know in our inter-community circles, as we talk about what religious life looks like, actually this was my leadership one day when I was talking about all this great stuff and I'm all excited, and they're like, are you trying to form a new congregation? And I was like, well, and I'm trying to be helpful and honest. And I said, well, I'm not sure that congregation is a meaningful term. And I think I totally frustrated her, but it was the best I could do. We don't know pieces of this. And I'm a lawyer. I know what structures can be very helpful. But there's also a time to hold those structures a little bit more lightly and to let us kind of live into a new reality. I don't mean complete lawlessness, because that can also be a problem. There's life in this life. Yes, that's actually one of our younger sisters. It's like there's life in this life. It's like we spend a lot of time in community dealing with, you know, our aging sisters, dealing with closing ministries, and that's important. Those are important conversations, and we need to have those. But how do we give ourselves the forums and the space to have the conversations about what's emerging, about how we move forward together? See what's emerging? You just never know. Let me just close that down. A number of people commented on the sister who said, you know, I don't remember her exact words as they related to the story, but just how could I live with people who are so different from me? It wasn't so much I don't have anything in common, but, you know, when I sit around the table, what are we going to talk about? You're all going to be talking about your ministries. I'm not in active ministry. You're all going to be talking about, you know, different things than what would interest me. And when our younger sister, I mean, I think it's just realizing that when our younger brothers or sisters come to a table with elders who have different interests, just be that awareness of what we're inviting people to, and can we afford each other space, and also do we have life-giving communities for our younger brothers and sisters? Members not. I'm not sure what that one means. You had to write really quick, and I have to read really quick. So, founded and refounded by a handful. Oh, living with my own sisters or an intentional community in the eco-village. Let me just clarify that. So, in the Giving Voice 2.0 gathering that we have in St. Louis, one of the things we identified, actually I knew the community I was living with, we were 13 sisters, was going to be closing down. It was the high school academy. And so almost all the sisters were moving to our retirement facility, and I'm like, I'm not quite there yet. But so I had to go find a place, and there was a lot of help for them to kind of find places, and they're like, oh, well, you can figure it out for yourself. And I'm like, Okay. So in our 2.0 group, we started talking about what many of us are having that situation. Somebody's living with a couple of older sisters, and one heart attack, and now they need to go look for another community. So we started talking about forming intercongregational communities. So we have an intercongregational house. Mako is a Notre Dame sister. I'm a sister of St. Joseph. We have had other sisters interested in moving in. We've got more space. So the idea was to build an inter-community house within the eco-village. So there's just a lot of cross-pollination going on there. So that's a little bit about that. Seeing today's challenge as an opportunity. As we'll just let that chaos, the Spirit is hovering over the waters and there's chaos, and that's really the forum for something new to emerge. If we had it all figured out, nothing new is going to emerge because, quite frankly, we're clean sailing. And I do think that some of that, constant upflow, increasing in numbers. The big challenge is where do we put everybody? Where are the new ministries? How many of these requests for our sisters can we respond to, or our brothers? We have different challenges today, and it's part of that that breakdown. But it's also a creative space. And a number of people talked about or wrote something about this is a time of risk. This is a time where we don't know where we're headed, and we know something. And really calling within. Do I have that courage, that ability to engage in the risk, and to keep living, and to gather those who are interested in it, who have that particular type of energy. When I did my work on aging community, it was the role of law in the life cycle of a religious institute, that navigating change. I looked at the life cycle of an organization, and there are different skills needed to start something new than to keep it going. And so different people are going to be attracted to that chaos, to that risk, and other people are going to shy away, and they need something more solid, more comfortable. So we are definitely looking for the risk takers, not only outside who want to join us, but even within the community. Who are the people who've got that kind of energy to bring to the process? Yeah, trusting the future. This person's talking about. I think that those who join us will take our communities in a different place, and I think that's true. Where we are now and where they'll bring us is different. Think of the history of your congregation. You weren't always exactly the same. And yet it was the creative people in your midst, the visionaries, who could bring you into new places, who could bring you into new realities. Comments? Can we trust? Yeah. Speaking, this is talking about relating to younger candidates and speaking their language. Knowing, yes, we need to engage them and they need to hear our stories, but we need to hear their story. We need to hear their stories. They also need to tell their stories. One of our younger sisters wrote, she does these poems, and I can't quote it exactly, but it was the story of sitting around the fire and sharing stories, and all the elders were sharing their stories, and all the ministries they've been in, and all the sisters they've known. And she was like, when is it going to be time for me to tell my story? And as it unfolded, it was never time for her to tell her story. So we really need to afford each other that space to hear the stories, of each other. See, one of our first Giving Voice, the local gathering, when we're just gathering people and say, would we like to get together? Would we like to, how would we like to organize ourselves? And one of the newer sisters, she was a Franciscan, and she said she has a really dry sense of humor, and she says, "You mean we're not getting together to talk about dead nuns?" And these are the bright, these are the stories that has inspired us. But when all you hear is about, people you don't know, people whose stories you never share their lives, it does, dead nuns. How do you convince the wider community to allow younger people to go beyond the older sister's comfort zone? And I think we need a critical mass of people who can do this. This is my personal perspective. I don't know that that's where I need all my sisters to be. I think if we can get that critical mass, we had a community of younger sisters. We used to gather like every Friday night in one of the rooms at our mother house. And one of the comments we got is, "What are you all up after 9 o'clock laughing for?" And it's like we're living religious life. We're building community. We're building the future of our community. So yes, affording each other that space and being gentle with one another as we do that.